Hello, and welcome back to the Sacred Light Collective podcast. You are with Ali. Thank you for joining me for another week, another episode. I realized as I sat down to record this that we are in October. Yay! I actually felt like there was this big kind of sigh as I recognized that we're in October. And while I haven't actually tuned into the energy specifically for this episode, it was more like I was like, it's October. I could already feel this sort of refreshing energy, this light energy, this more space for creative and self-expression. It just feels like a month that is going to bring in a bit more movement. Like I can really feel the energy moving and shifting and flowing just so easily, and just streams of flowing light, rainbow light, such beautiful vibration and frequencies. A real crystalline frequency is what's coming in as I start to call in that energy and bring that energy into this episode. I'm really welcoming that in. It feels like we are calling that into this space. And I didn't set to speak into the energy too much on this episode, but I'm really feeling like it wants us to welcome it into this space. So I'm just going to take a moment to really feel like we are drawing that in. So even as you're listening to this now, feel like you can bring that energy through, this lightness, this flow, and just these streams of energy just moving so effortlessly, the colors of the rainbow, real crystalline frequency, real crystalline frequency. And I'm loving the feeling of that through the chakra energy, really feeling it coming in from the crown, from the top of the head. It really feels like it's working almost as if the chakras are now taking on this real crystalline finish. It's so interesting. I really feel like that there is crystals representing each of the chakras rather than me seeing the normal color that I would when I'm tuning into that energy. But it feels like it's just moving effortlessly. There's no resistance. There's no boundaries. Really feeling this sense of unity and oneness in the energy. Like there's no beginning and end to anything. It's really moving as one and moving forward in this way. And that's really beautiful because September has been such an interesting month for me. And as I've shared on the last few episodes, it's really deepened into this inner reflective state. And really this last week and a half, I have really struggled with feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'll be honest. Not doing enough, feeling this pressure of needing to achieve things. Lots of the old kind of controlling masculine driven energy and the do, go energy. And, I'm not busy, quote unquote, enough. And it's so funny because there's been this internal push and pull because my higher self and the seat of my soul that is anchored in my physical body has had me just in this state of pause, has had me in the void space, has had me just calling attention internally, calling in this attention to witnessing what's coming up, to witnessing what's coming through. And I feel like I've been a bit like, the toddler that can't sit still. He's been told to sit still and is fidgeting and jumping around in their chair, getting distracted by shiny things around the room because I didn't realize how hard it was for me to sit in almost like the eye of the storm. And it's been such a powerful actually journey as I'm now reflecting on that it has enabled me to actually hold myself more deeply in the uncomfortable, to hold myself in the mental noise, to hold myself in the ego's chatter and voice. And you might be noticing that coming through. Maybe that's going to flow in for you a little bit through this month. And so I would just really invite you to observe some of that. I know that I was speaking into how a lot of the past emotions and triggers and physical ailments and pain were kind of coming back up, almost like this awareness of these aspects of tying off and completing those cycles and lessons. And this feels a bit like it's coming in as part of that as well, because it's that powerful moment of being able to hold yourself in that voice of your ego or your mind, your subconscious, whatever you want to look at that like. Hold yourself in that and still make the choice to see the truth of what's there, and to pause in that moment to be able to make a different choice. And it was sort of interesting, actually. I was speaking to a friend of mine about it because I kind of reached this point where it was like, oh, am I in this stagnant energy? Like, because it was starting to feel really, really hard to keep holding myself there. And so I was starting to fall into this trap of like over analyzing rather than being curious with it. I started to overanalyze it. And so I was just sharing this with a friend and sharing how I'm a bit worried that I'm in this stagnant energy and that I'm just feeding into that, this story of being lazy, unmotivated, not doing enough. And, you know, there's always an expectation that needs to be met. There's always something that needs to be done. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. When you were kids, it's like you kind of were always pushed, encouraged to be doing something, to be achieving something, or to keep doing that next one thing. We weren't really, or certainly my generation, it wasn't really about just being in the moment. It was always like looking to something else. And so this opportunity to be really in the present moment, which it's really hard to explain how that felt too, because the week would go really quickly, but moment to moment, I felt like it was slow motion. It was one of those moments where, literally, like in a movie, I felt like I was just really wading through this thick energy in slow motion. And I think that probably fed into this feeling of like, oh, this feels like stagnant energy. But jumping back to that conversation I was having with my friend, it was super interesting to just bounce that off someone, because as we talked through what I was feeling and what was coming up, I also recognized how I was in the energy of ease and flow. And it just hadn't come to me in the way that I had sort of set the expectation, I guess. If I be really honest, I think I had this expectation of what ease and flow was, or how that would look, or how I perceived that would look. And then I remember sort of sitting back in this moment of just being like, wow, this is what ease feels like. This is what it's like to be in the flow. I'm in the flow because there's nothing that I need to actually be doing right now, because the call hadn't come in, the inner call hadn't come in. I was just being asked to be with what was there. And as quickly as I started to recognize that, it would move on and it would move through. And, even to the point of other experiences that would come up from life, other things to do with friendships and connection, or work, career, different things that I would feel stimulated by. When I enabled myself to go into that inner state, to be able to sit with it, to be reflective and curious, it enabled me to sort of sort through that so quickly, and then to kind of be like, nope, we can push that back out, because we know that that is not here. For this doesn't serve us. That's not what we are operating with quite now. We're streamlining. We are streamlining in the way that we are receiving, the way that we are moving, and the way that we are accepting what comes into the state of being. So anything that was coming from this past place, it was almost like I had the freedom now to be like, oh yeah, okay, tick tick tick, checks and balances. Nope, that doesn't apply. We let that go into the stream. We let that go into the flow. There's our ease and a flow. And so rather than being caught in the stuckness or the stickiness or the bump, the hurdle, I was able to just keep moving through that and to keep flowing through that. And, like anything, there are some days that works better than others. And I've just had this beautiful weekend. It's a long weekend where I am. That's why this episode's coming out a little bit later, because I really checked out so that I could just be present with everything that I was doing, the company I was with, and just enjoy that moment. And it was so interesting to also feel the the heart the heart want to tighten up and want to protect myself, to feel where those little triggers, um, about particularly relationships. And I say relationships, but just connections with people, just this idea of, being emotionally open and vulnerable, and how I want to show up in that, and how the old me might have done as to the new me now. And it was so interesting how I really had this moment of, like, understanding this is a trip that we do, every year on this same weekend, with this wonderful group of people. And it was so interesting as I was in this reflective state to be able to see just how certain things were not aligned for me, and certain energy around that I felt very differently about. And I was able to give myself permission to let that be okay. I didn't have to follow the tribe. I didn't have to fear being the odd one out, um, not being liked or accepted because I wasn't following the crowd. I was able to be me in that space. I was able to hold that energy and to hold myself in that with my heart open. And I think that's been really powerful through the month of September for me, is to really deepen the heart opening and the expansion. And intimacy has been a bit of a running theme. And I have noticed that even with a lot of the sessions that I've been doing, that's what's been coming through. This is opening us up to intimacy with ourselves. And when I say intimacy, not of a sexual nature, just the intimacy of connection coming from the open and vulnerable heart space, compassionate and grace-filled heart space. And that how when we don't have our walls up, when we're not blocking people out or holding that at arm's length, we're able to receive more deeply. But first and foremost, it's about really connecting with yourself more intimately. It's coming to know yourself more intimately. And as I said, this was really beautiful because I had this ability to, because of this journey of being in a reflective state, in the pause, the void energy for this month, or the month of September, that it allowed me to really sit with what was there, what was true, what did I want to feel, who did I want to be, and really anchor in this embodiment more deeply of my true self. And as I said, particularly in a group setting, to be able to hold myself and to be okay with who I am was like a huge, huge milestone for me. And what I love about this journey is the more inner work we do, the more we see that in our external world. And it's so easy to keep our eye on the external world and get so focused on that we forget about our internal world. And if that's one thing that I could say in this episode that I would love for you to sit with in contemplation, in reflection of, is how can you open your heart more deeply to yourself? How can you allow yourself to go within more deeply, to meet yourself more deeply, without letting that be influenced by your external world? And I say that to share with you an example. I reconnected with a friend of mine. I think we maybe parted ways about 10 years ago. And at the time, I was very much in I would call it the go with the flow state. I was the easygoing person, which was code for, I now know, I'm a people pleaser. I'm just going to do what you want me to do, or I think you want me to do, so that we keep the peace here and we keep everyone happy. And I had no understanding. It's so interesting, even as I reflect on that now with you, how I used to think I was someone that went with the flow, and that was so far from the truth. That it is so funny, so funny. But how beautiful is life, right? Okay, so here's the lesson, because here I am stepping into energy of ease and flow, and here's this opportunity for me to revisit on a number of layers how very much out of the flow I was, out of ease that I was. And yeah, with this friend, she really struggled with the fact that I would just do what she wanted to do. She was looking for more of an equal lead in the friendship, I think. And in all honesty, as I'm looking back on it with the me now, I suspect that I was mirroring a lot to her as much as she was mirroring to me different aspects. And I just think that neither of us were uh, at a place where we were ready to see ourselves each more deeply. And so we had this beautiful lesson where she chose to inform me that I wasn't the right type of friend for her. So we were parting ways, and she gave me a list of reasons why, but that I am now really grateful for. I am now so grateful for, because that was one of the times in my life where I look at where, yes, it hurt. Yes, there was a lot of sadness, resentment, a lot of bitterness actually up until the last few years. But I was able to see where the external was mirroring back to me what was going on for me internally, and I had just missed it. And I was too caught in the victim space. So I wanted to blame everyone else. I wanted the external world to change before I would actually take a look within myself. So when we reconnected, not even specifically having any particular conversation about the way our friendship ended, because I think we were both just genuinely happy to see each other. And I know for me, because of this work that I've been doing, particularly over the course of this year, about really holding myself open, about really letting the guard down and really being in somewhat of the uncomfortableness in just allowing the feelings to come through, that I actually felt like there was a lightness around being able to connect with her and to meet her. And to meet her, in this open space, in this compassionate space, without any animosity, without any resentment or bitterness, and just really curiosity, I guess, in this reflective state, this curiosity of like, oh, this feels different. Oh, this is really interesting. And what was even more fascinating was that we connected around our journeys since we had last seen each other. And it was so funny that we had very, very similar journeys with our relationships, with our children, and our careers, and how our beliefs and how who we are have really evolved more into the the reflection of who we truly are. And while I don't think that it will necessarily pick up to, it's not like we're picking up where we left off from 10 years ago, I think that it was a really beautiful way that life was able to show me, to reflect and allow me to walk through all of this inner work that I have done. And also to enable me to see that everybody, and, I know this, I know you know this, but everybody is battling their inner critic, their inner voice, their ego. And everybody is struggling at the mirrors that are being reflected back at them. And so that's where we have to be more gentle with ourselves too, is to understand that these mirrors are sometimes just almost like our signposts, our directions to what is here for us to see within ourselves. And rather than blame someone else, rather than take it externally, it's bring it in more deeply and meet it there, see it there, hold it there. the depth, that I have met myself in the people pleasing. I can laugh about that now. Like, you heard me before. I can laugh about the fact that I used to say to people, "Oh yeah, I'll just go with the flow," when I was so far from the truth. But I also appreciate that, because that has been a beautiful gift to learn and to walk through, to be the person here now that is really learning to be embodied in the ease and the flow. Like, this person talking to you now, she's in the stream. She's in the stream of life, the stream of consciousness. And the aspect of the open heart, the space with which to receive, Because if you're like me and you've got the wall up, if you're holding things at arm's length, you're holding everything. There's no discernment here about, oh, I'm just holding that person at arm's length, or this situation, or this feeling. It's everything. So I also really deeply understood how I was struggling with the flow of abundance, because I was struggling with actually just receiving fully, receiving it all. Life wants us to receive what our mind and what society has taught us is good and bad. The black and the white, like there's no separation. And what our guides are sort of sharing with me now is, when I tapped into that energy of October, and I was saying to you, the streams of energy, the color of the energy, and no boundaries to that, moving through the chakras and the body and everything, like I'm seeing and feeling that as though there's no edges. And that's what being in receivership is. That is the ease and the flow and the movement. That is the, quote unquote, good and bad. It's only what we make it, whether it's good or bad. I could have closed off to this friend when we crossed paths. I could have held my heart closed. I could have been still in that place of resentment and bitterness and victimhood. I could have kept walking with my arm out, holding her away from me. And I would have missed all of this. I would have missed this beautiful gift and lesson, this powerful, powerful opening and understanding and embodiment of receivership, of ease, of flow, incorporating abundance, right? Because abundance is all of it. Abundance just isn't financially related. Abundance is in this quality of connection, quality of relationships, of experience, the richness, the fullness of life. And sometimes that brings up some fear, some, trepidation. As we work with that part of the brain that just wants to keep us safe, it's edging towards this understanding. It's okay, because we can do this. We are okay. We know there's no threat or danger here, really. We want to explore. We want to have this adventure. We want to thrive. As I've mentioned, I think in one of my early episodes, where it would come to like the Christmas New Year period, and it would feel like another year starting. And it's like, I'm in the same place that I was 12 months ago. I would set some goals. I would do that whole New Year's resolution thing that everyone likes to do, but I would never follow through on anything. It would fall off because I was in such a fearful state. I was so closed off, as I said, closed off to the external, but also closed off to myself. I didn't allow myself to receive pleasure, joy, happiness, because I had closed out all the bad, let's say, that I also blocked out all of that good, if we're going to use that language. And that's really what I'm feeling as we move into this October energy, is the really understanding of it is all one. It's not good or bad. It's all one. It's all in the experience of that. And how can you come within? How can you meet yourself more deeply? How can you hold yourself softly? Because maybe it's an inner child, inner teen. Maybe there's a part of you that's coming from that needs a little bit more love around that. But how can you just be in reflection of that? How can you see that part of you, or observe where, like I said, for me, where there was a heavy pattern of people pleasing, and that I'd slipped into this mode of going with the flow without really understanding what that meant, or who that was serving, or was that serving anybody. It actually really wasn't serving anybody at all. You know, in the case of the friendship I was talking about, it didn't serve her because she didn't want to be in a friendship like that. So it wasn't serving me, wasn't serving her. That was a survival. That wasn't thriving. That was just surviving. And as I feel into the energy for us here, it really feels like stretching the heart just open more deeply. And there's always this part of my mind that says, oh, you're saying the same thing. You're saying the same thing all the time. But our guides, our collective higher selves are dropping in, right? I just felt the energy shift as they dropped in to fully support us in this, to fully support us to go within, to allow ourselves to open our hearts to ourselves more deeply. This isn't even about to life at the moment. Right now, opening your heart more deeply to you. Allowing yourself to see all of those parts of you, the ones that you had labeled good and bad, bringing them all into the center of your heart, in those streams of color, of light, as one. No labels anymore. It's all just you. It makes you all you. The experiences, the challenges, the good, the bad, is all just opportunities for us to get to know ourselves more deeply, to bring ourselves into union with our higher self aspect, the understanding of being the spirit in form, enabling us to embody our highest whole self and to share that self expression, to share that creative expression. So I invite you this week to sit with that, to deepen into this self reflection practice. And I'll let you in on a secret. There was no meditation. If anything, my daily practices kind of flew out the window because of the resistance that was coming up in me. But all I did was just create space for the uncomfortable. So that's the invitation for you. When you feel the uncomfortable come through, create some space to just be with it, to feel it, to hold it, to just look at it with neutrality, curiosity, reflection. You might have already had some experiences like me through September. There might be some that are coming. When life gives you some experiences, and that's what we're going to call it, it's not a challenge anymore. It's an experience. And it can be good or bad, remember? It can be good or bad, but look at that and reflect on how far you've come, or what else is needed to be seen around that, or how you can marry the two together, how you can bring forward what you now know and who you are now, and how that you can transmute that energy around the perceived weakness, failure. whatever it might be for you. And to embody and embrace more of this wholeness of you. Because, my friends, that's what we're being asked to do, is to remember that this makes up our whole self. No part gets left behind because it is part of who we are. It is really time to release some of the duality around this good, this bad, this positive, negative, success and failure even, and embrace just the general experience of it. Let yourself feel any uncomfortableness, any tension, any resistance. Let that rise up in you. And that's how you move through it. So that is my invitation for you for the week, or as you move into October, is to really deepen your intimate connection with yourself, to go more deeply, to open the heart more deeply, to let more of the guard down, more of the wall down, to allow yourself to really deepen the relationship to self. I really feel the potency of the energy through this episode. I don't feel to do any light language or to do any active transmission. I feel to just draw your attention to the energy in the portal of this episode, to open your heart, to allow it in and receive it, to use it as your guide, your intention for the coming days or weeks, to guide you to moving more deeply on that inner spiral pathway to the wholeness of you. As I hold you in my whole heart, the light, the love, the divinity within me honors the light, the love, the divinity within you. Namaste.